My ex-husband and his new wife died 6 months ago. We were divorced for 3 years prior to that, after he cheated on me for about 6 years with the woman he married after our divorce. Ex and I share 3 children, a nearly adult son and 2 teen daughters. Ex got his second wife pregnant while we were married, which is how the affair got revealed in the first place. I kicked him out and cut ties except for semi-civil co-parenting. I've never had anything to do with his daughter, who's now a toddler. After my ex died, my former mother-in-law took her in temporarily. She's in poor health and my ex was our only child. The mother of the child had no family willing to take her, so she wanted to try to keep her out of foster care. My former mother-in-law asked me about 2 months ago to consider raising her granddaughter, seeing as she is the half-sibling of my children. I told her I didn't want to do that. She spoke to my children and they refused to ask me on her behalf. She suggested that my children might want to keep her in the family and asked how I could deny them that chance. So, I asked my children if they had any thoughts or plans to take her on once any of them were 18. They all said no. My son said his grandma had mentioned that to him, but he didn't care. My girls share a similar sentiment, though she did not ask them directly. Former mother-in-law reached out again and I told her my answer was still no. She suggested that her granddaughter was my family and I cut her off and said that was not true. I told her I was not this child's mother, stepmother, aunt, or anything that would imply family. She told me she'd need to let the caseworker know in the coming weeks that she needs a foster home if I can't take her. She told me to do it for her granddaughter, that she's innocent, and how could I not love her, and rambled on a lot about that. I lost my cool, snapped at her and told her I didn't want to help her granddaughter and foster care was the best place for her if she couldn't raise her. My former mother-in-law told me I was a horrible, evil woman and that it was no wonder my children didn't care about their sister when I had that attitude about her, and she hoped one day it wouldn't come back to bite me in the butt. Am I the idiot for how I spoke to her and what I said about her granddaughter? Not the idiot. It's insane for the ex-mother-in-law to try to rope you into this. You went above and beyond, even talking to your kids about this. The child is a half-sibling to your children, but that doesn't create an obligation on your part. Some people are able to take on roles like your ex-mother-in-law is suggesting, and some people can't or won't. There's nothing wrong with that. Your ex-mother-in-law needs to back off. That was her choice, now she can deal with it. I mean, it's not insane, it's desperate. I can understand 100% why she's willing to try and do it and why it's never gonna happen. Everyone's been dealt a crappy hand here and it has obviously reached an inevitable, unpleasant conclusion. And how great of a life would the child even have being raised by the person who was cheated on and her being a constant reminder of that infidelity? Seems kinder to give her a clean slate with a new family that can love her without the baggage. I agree that Opie's not the idiot, but as someone who volunteers with foster kids, I really wish people would stop viewing the system this way. There is no clean slate for foster kids and there is no new family without baggage. These kids inherently understand that their life is completely out of their control and their foster families are temporary placements. Adoption will likely be an option in this kid's case and it may happen, but not before several foster placements and a long court case of the adoptive jumping through hoops. Well, not quite everyone. Opie's ex and his affair partner dealt their own hand by A. having an affair, B. not using birth control, C. not planning for the kid's future in case of their deaths. Trust and wills and pre-death conversations with friends and family are all things that they didn't do. Sad for the child, she'll pay the price for the poor decisions of her parents, but Opie is under no obligation to take responsibility. My brother Harold is engaged to Lillian and she asked me to be a bridesmaid. I politely declined and explained why I couldn't. Harold and Lillian are extremely unhappy with my decision. I'm a fire marshal. I know it's called different things in different countries. My office investigates fires. Since fires don't just happen from Monday to Friday during business hours, I work all shifts, including overnight and on weekends. I checked my work schedule when Harold and Lillian announced their wedding date shortly after the engagement and long before I was asked to be a bridesmaid. My schedule rotates and goes in a pattern so I can see it years in advance. I was scheduled to work on the day of the wedding. However, I arranged to switch with another marshal, so I'm not working on the day of the wedding. I've ensured I don't have to work and can attend the wedding and reception. Otherwise, I'd be starting work before the ceremony and not finishing until after the reception ends. To be a bridesmaid, I'd be expected to go to Lillian's dress appointments, go on the group shopping trip to purchase the bridesmaid dresses, help put them together, host and clean up at the bridal shower, go to the hair and makeup appointment to help plan and go to the bachelorette party, to assist with things like making the centerpieces and decorating the reception room, to go to the wedding rehearsal and dinner and more. Lillian's been upfront about the commitment she wants. However, with my work schedule, I can't do all that. The dates and times for those aren't set and we have to work around Lillian's schedule foremost. I asked Lillian if I could be a bridesmaid and go to the wedding and nothing else. She said no. She wants her bridesmaids committed to those things. My sister asked me to be a bridesmaid in her wedding and I couldn't do it for similar reasons, on top of being in the biggest case of my career in the lead up to her wedding. My sister understood and didn't flip out like Lillian and Harold did. I explained the same things I did to my sister back then to Lillian and Harold. Also, I reminded Harold that I couldn't be a bridesmaid for our sister. I thanked Lillian for asking me, and because I was trying to make up for not being able to be a bridesmaid, I offered to pay for Lillian's hair and makeup separately from my gift. Harold and Lillian said that that's not good enough and said I'm exaggerating my work situation. They want me to change my mind. Both of them are self-employed and control their own work schedules. Harold said I could just leave early or not go to work, but if there is a fire or investigation, that's not how it works and I can't just leave. I didn't think politely declining would be a big deal, but Harold and Lillian flipped out and other people are getting involved in saying that I'm wrong. Now I'm not sure because I'm getting so much pushback. Not the idiot, and it's not your fault that they're incapable of understanding that the world does not revolve around them. Also, even if there weren't work conflicts, it's up to you. Maybe your P just doesn't want to be a bridesmaid. I totally get it. Weddings are dumb. Yes, OMG. I was a bridesmaid for my brother and my sister and I will never do it for anyone else. It's so much work and it can be so expensive. The pushback OP's getting dollars to donuts is due to the bride and groomzilla's actively recruiting amongst friends and family with exaggerations and lies. People love to jump on the bandwagon without knowing the whole story. Oh, let them have their tantrum. The bride doesn't want a bridesmaid. She wants free labor. Even if you committed to the things she asked, she'd find more. The fact that they're completely unwilling to compromise means they don't actually care about having you in the wedding party. They want an extra person to set stuff up and to pay for bachelorette and bridal shower things. No is a complete sentence. You are not obligated to be a bridesmaid. My dad passed away when I was only a baby, so my paternal grandparents were my main caregivers while my mom worked until I was about 4 when she met Jason. There was some weirdness between them and I'm not sure about all that went on, but I do know when they were engaged, which was 6 months after they met. Mom was in an accident and my grandparents took care of me until Mom got out. I know this angered Jason and my mom. They felt like my grandparents should have left me with Jason and given me a chance to bond with him, because to hear my mom tell it, all I wanted was my grandparents when I was little, and when the accident first happened, I cried for them when I realized I couldn't see her. It sounds like a social worker might have been involved, though I don't really remember it. Jason adopted me when I was 5. He and my mom had just gotten married. They told me it was gonna happen and I asked them not to, but they told me Jason was going to be my dad. I never called him Dad. I always used his first name and called him my stepdad, which bothered them. They blamed my grandparents because they shared much about my dad with me. Mom tried to cut me off from my grandparents, but the courts declared that since I had such a strong attachment to my grandparents and they were a connection to my biological dad, I deserved to maintain that relationship. I ended up getting to see them every other weekend and I got one overnight a month with them. I loved it. I never fully felt comfortable with Jason. He tried super hard to be my dad. He would spoil me and would take time out of his day to spend it with me, but he was also so jealous when he saw that I kept a photo of my dad close by my bed and when he walked in on me talking to the photo when I was little. He'd get upset when I wrote notes for my dad's grave for Father's Day. As a kid, I used to believe more in people existing after death and knowing what we said to them and wrote for them, so I did that sometimes. I can recognize that Jason was pained by the fact that I was talking to and writing to a dad I never knew and never would remember and still used his first name, but it doesn't change how I felt or how I feel today. His hatred for my grandparents didn't win me over either. I do think I loved Jason, but I would never say he was my dad. I'm now in my 20s and engaged to a wonderful human. My grandma's gonna walk me down the aisle. Before asking, I told my mom and Jason so they could be prepared. Jason asked me about money, which I'd never asked for or discussed with him. When I told him my fiancée and I were paying, he offered to pay so he could give me away. I got mad. I told him again that I never asked for that and said it was insulting to think he could pay me to walk me down the aisle. He and my mom think I'm insensitive to his feelings given that I know he considers me his daughter and I've never accepted him as my dad. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It makes sense that after bonding so much with your grandparents that you would prefer one of them to walk you down the aisle compared to a man who sounds like he's forcing a father-daughter relationship with you and trying to bribe his way into your ceremony. If he really loves you, he should want you to be happy more than he wants to walk you down the aisle. What so many parents fail to realize is if they stop trying to force a relationship, the odds are good a relationship will form. For example, if Jason was more secure and didn't try to push you away from your grandparents and get mad that you had a photo of your dad, you probably would have been able to get closer to him. Exactly. He can't just try and buy his way into your ceremony after years of a toxic relationship. While traditionally, the father of the bride walks her down the aisle, you were robbed of this choice at a very young age. And since you never had that kind of bond with your stepdad, it's understandable to want someone else to walk you down the aisle. I love that you chose your grandma, and I'm sorry that your mom and stepdad reacted badly. I wish you a wonderful ceremony and a happy marriage. My nephew is a tween. He's my sister's only child, but she has 2 stepkids. My sister's stepkids are my nephew's half-siblings. They share a father. My sister's stepkids have an active mom in their lives and split time between their mom's house and brother-in-law and my sister's house. When my nephew was younger, he told me he felt like his siblings didn't like him very much and that they didn't call him their brother. He heard them tell another kid that he was not their brother. He was upset about it because he didn't understand why they'd say that. I told my sister, and at the time, she didn't seem to care very much. She said my nephew was fine and her stepkids loved him, and all 3 kids were close. She said I was overthinking what he told me. I didn't really know what else to do, so I let it drop. But my nephew continued opening up to me. In the last 5 years, he has vented, cried on my shoulder, and told me he doesn't think his half-siblings love him. He only truly realized they were half-siblings a few years ago when a friend of his explained he had a half-sister because his mom had a baby with someone who wasn't his dad, and he came to realize his siblings had a different mom. My nephew hates that his siblings don't want more to do with him. He longs to be closer, so he asked me for help on how. I told him not to push them, but he could always ask if they wanted to watch a movie or play on a trampoline, and I told him if they say no, he needs to accept their no. I did tell my nephew he should talk to his parents about it, but he said that they didn't care. After asking him some questions, I realized they didn't see the whole picture, or at least the picture my nephew saw. At least they didn't until one of the teens did a genealogy project for school and didn't include my nephew at all. This led to some questions being asked, the older kids saying they only acknowledged one sibling, and my sister and her husband talking to my nephew who said how he felt. He also told my sister he spoke to me. She was furious with me. I pointed out I had come to her, and she dismissed it. She said I should have done it again and kept trying to make her understand. I said if I had done that, she would have accused me of getting involved in something that was none of my business. She admitted she would have, but my nephew would have been better off. She told me that he's her son, and she should be told when he's feeling like that. She asked me how she was meant to feel hearing her son say that he didn't think he was loved or wanted. She told me I should have involved her. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It sounds to me that your sister feels so guilty that she's desperate to share the blame. You're right that you could have done nothing without risking your sister reacting negatively, ultimately jeopardizing your relationship with your nephew. Your sister needs to own that she messed up, and she needs to listen better. People don't need to try to make her hear. There's no way that OP was the first person the nephew talked about this with. As a young child, he absolutely told his parents first, and they dismissed his feelings. Then he told OP she validated his feelings and became a safe person to express them after his parents taught him that they weren't safe people to talk about this with. This continued for 5 more years. You tried more than once. She's using you to mitigate her guilt and try to stay on her high horse. Don't let her. He told her. You told her. Both of you, more than once. What more did she want? God himself to make someone put it in skywriting? She'd still say it was a prank and keep dismissing it. My 35 female husband passed away a few years ago in an accident, so now it's just me and my son, young grammar school age. My husband was the main breadwinner, so it has been rough. I work until late and he gets out of school at 3. My sister-in-law doesn't work. Her husband owns a very successful business, and she helps out. Sister-in-law picks my son up from school and brings him to her house to hang out and do homework until I can pick him up. On Wednesday, she called me while I was already at work to tell me she and her husband got last-minute concert tickets so she couldn't pick him up from school. I was angry. It would be one thing if I knew in advance and could make other arrangements, but she just sprung it on me. I asked her to reconsider and reminded her that she made this commitment and that breaking it would be really crappy. She still went to the concert. I had to leave work 6 hours early and lost out on all those hours. I figured since she put me in this spot, she should have to recoup my income as it's the only thing me and my son survive on. I sent her a Venmo request for the amount I lost out on. A few minutes later, I got a nasty text from her about how she was not paying for it. I had to send my son home with one of his friends yesterday and today because she won't pick him up. I told some of my friends and they're 50-50 on if I should have done it, but I need that income and she made a commitment to me and my son. That's more important than going to a concert to get drunk. Edit. She helps me out for free with my son. This is amazingly stupid. Your sister-in-law babysits for free and you want to charge her money when she can't babysit for free. Wild. You are the idiot. Your sister-in-law is not your personal slave. Your kid is your problem, but you sure seem to have dumped so much parental responsibility on your sister-in-law that you somehow think now that she's a parent and she owes you money to take care of your own kid. That's not how it works. The attitude is crazy. She said she helps out and quotes the level of disrespect from the start to someone doing her this favor. I've been an ad for more than half my life and I feel lucky that my sibling has always made their kids available to me to love and train and support. It's been a huge part of my life, but demanding I give up my life because they have kids was never their inclination, let alone their right to assume. OP doesn't seem to understand that her needs and sister-in-law's priorities will sometimes differ. Lady, I would never watch your child again. You can hire a babysitter. You are the idiot for the Venmo request and for not having a backup plan. What if it were a true emergency? What would you have done then? You must ensure you have a backup plan for childcare for your son. Your sister-in-law has been providing free childcare 5 days a week for 5 to 6 hours a day, including picking up your son from school and probably providing snacks and meals. That's a lot. We pay $1,200 a month for daycare